Hello team, today's challenge is HSL Validator, where we're given a string representing an HSL value, and we need to determine if it is actually a valid HSL value. So for that, the numbers, the first number is degrees, the second two are percentages from 0 to 100 inclusive, which means that the degrees can only go from 0 to 360, and the saturation and lightness can only go from 0 to 100, which I said twice. So doubling up on that. Very well done, me. They do throw a few wrenches in here where there are some random spaces between things. These are all there. And then for most of it, that doesn't really matter, except for this space right between HSL and everything inside of the parentheses, and the fact that this last one is missing a percent sign. So we're going to have to take care of all of that, okay? As a side note, in real life, if you're using this in CSS and you use a number bigger than 360, it'll just keep wrapping around, right? Which is kind of interesting. And if you use a number bigger or smaller than these percentage ranges, it will clip to those ranges. And it will be pretty close. There are sometimes some weird things. I think it's with my screen where the difference between 100% and 1000%, it actually makes it just a little bit more saturated, a tiny, tiny amount. Probably just my screen or the color matching in my computer systems. But it's always going to be close, okay? It's never going to be wildly off. So if in real life you use numbers that are outside of these ranges, it's usually pretty safe. That's what I'm trying to say. For this, they absolutely want this, which means that we have extra work ahead of us, and we are going to get that done. In fact, we are going to start by testing against these numbers, which means that we need to split the numbers out from this string, okay? We're going to do that right here. Let's just call it nums for a second, because we're going to come back to that. And we're going to go HSL dot split, okay? Now here we're going to use a regular expression. It's going to be global, and it's going to be anything that is not a number. That's what the capital D means, okay? Anything that is not a number of any length, which makes sense. If it has multiple digits, we want all of those digits, okay? Now there is a catch with this. Because of how split works, if we look at this right here, it's going to say, oh, I found one. Brilliant. So I'm going to split between the start and this number. And that's important, okay? Splitting between the start and this number means that I have the start and this number. And then it jumps to this number and to this number, and then it sees some more stuff and it goes, okay, I'm going to split between this number and the end. So what we actually end up having is start, middle, 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 end, which is 5 elements. Okay, if we were to console log this nums, we would get a 5-element array. Okay. We absolutely don't need the first and last because they are undefined, right? They have nothing in them. So what we're going to do is we are going to destructure the H, the S, and the L. And you'll notice that I started with a comma, because if you want to ignore certain data, certain bits of data when you're destructuring, you absolutely can by just adding extra commas. So this first one where the cursor is flashing, that is our first element. We haven't given that a variable name, so it is discarded. And then the middle 3, the HSL, we get that, okay? We absolutely do. Which means that down here, we can start operating on that, right? We can do this where it is between like this values. We're going to pass in that value, which is, in this case, H, right? H being a string, we want it to be a number, so let's force that. And then we have our between values, which is 0 and 360, okay? This is a variable that we have not, or this is a function that we have not made. Let's go do that really fast. Function, pasting it in, changing some of these. So this is going to be the value we want. This is going to be min. This is going to be max, just like this. And we can test against that. So we return min less than equal to value, and too many ampersands, but and value less than equal to max, okay? Other languages have a better syntax for this, but JavaScript doesn't. So we need to use that double ampersand in here for the logical and, okay? But that does it. Now we can do that. We absolutely have this. We need 2 more tests of this nature, which is why we created that function. So I'm going to grab all of this just like this, copy it, bring it down, indenting because I like things pretty. And here's the saturation, which only goes to 100. And right here is the lightness, which also only goes to 100, okay? We don't need these ampersands, but we can test it right away. And what you'll find is that everything's looking pretty good because everything is valid, except for these last 2 where I mentioned this should have a percent sign behind the 75, right? It should have some sort of a measurement. And the first one, or the very last one, sorry, should not have a space between HSL and the parentheses. So we need to take care of both those, which means that we should use a regular expression. Now, in case you're wondering why I didn't use a regular expression for everything, it's because testing against number ranges inside of regular expressions is a nightmare. As an example, we have 100. We would need to test 0 to 9, or 10 to 99, or 100. Okay? So we would need to test each of those individually because there is no range expression inside of regular expressions, at least not in JavaScript. Okay? Maybe in other languages that I haven't heard of, but that's how we would have to do that. And then translating that for the 360, well, that would just be nightmare fuel. Okay? That's not a good place to live. I don't want to do that. So we test these values individually, and now we are going to build out a regular expression for the second part of this, right? To make sure that the format of the HSL is valid, okay? For this, I'm going to create another function, okay? I'm going to call it isHSLMatch, which is probably a terrible name, but we're going to go with it, okay? And inside of here, I'm going to create that regular expression. So right here, I'm going to set it up as new, REGEXP, brilliant, okay? Now, inside of here, I'm going to build this out, okay? And I'm going to build it out in what you might consider to be a little bit messy, a little bit extra. But I do have a reason for it, which is my whole reason for doing this today, honestly, okay? Just to teach you this part. So we're going to start out with the start of that string, which is HSL, followed by a parentheses. But parentheses inside of regular expressions are a grouping mechanism. So in order to make sure that this isn't caught, we need a backslash, okay? And because this is a string that we are concatenating together, it's all JavaScript until it's fed to regular expressions, okay? Which means that it'll catch this, and then all of a sudden we will be back to a parentheses. That's not what we want, right? So we need 2 backslashes. Every time we do a backslash, we actually need 2, which is not going to be fun, but you'll see why this is benefiting us in the long run, okay? So at the end of that, we are going to do a plus. We're coming down, we're doing it. The next thing is a space. Now, a space is \s. We want 0 or more of them. And because we have that backslash, we need an extra backslash. Excellent. Adding it in. Going down, we have the digits. We want the digits to be from 1 to 3, okay? But again, backslash, we're going to do that. So building it in. And now we start to build on this. So I'm going to grab this right here and paste it down because between these, we have, we can update this, okay? So it's going to be comma, \s, any number of those. And then this one here is going to be that %, right? We need that %, which means that we can grab all of this. So this is space, comma, space, optional space, comma, optional space, right? Along with this number, which we are going to do a second time because the last number is also a percentage, okay? And then after that, we have another optional space. So we can go and grab this line here, paste it in, okay? Grabbing that, excellent. Finally, we have the closing parentheses, which again, protected character, so we're going to escape that. I know it feels like a lot of work, but stay with me. There is a reason, okay? There absolutely is. Optional space, that should all be in quotes, just like this, with an asterisk. Brilliant. And finally, we have an optional semicolon, okay? That's a lot. So we tested for the HSL. There, you'll notice that there is no space between HSL and this parentheses, okay? The opening parentheses. So we do that. There might be space after the parentheses, so we have that. A number from basically 0 to 999, right? A comma, which might be wrapped in space. Another number that's followed by percentage. Comma with some spacing. Another number with a percent. Optional spacing. Closing parentheses. The words are not working for me, but closing parentheses. Optional space. And then an optional semicolon. Okay. Finally, we return it. Okay. So this is where we do the test. We go re.test, test, not text, HSL, and we use that. Because this is all the same, we can just go and grab it right here. Whoops, jumping around, double ampersand, and tabbing that in so it's all nice and neat. Okay. At this point, it works, and it is brilliant. Okay. So what we've done, again, we've tested those ranges, because doing this inside of regular expressions is a nightmare. It is a bad time. Okay. You'll have to test for so many conditions, and the difference between the 100 and the 360, it's not a happy time. Okay. Don't do that. Just test it in a very normal way, which is what we did. Okay. The second part, we needed to test if the string itself was valid. And for that, we did a pretty nasty looking regular expression. But if I go down here and I grab this, okay, I'm going to highlight all this, including the spaces. Don't do that, okay? So right here, and I'm going to paste. Now, nothing in here should have changed, okay? I can back this out, nothing changed. But you can see now is where we see the power of it, because I can add comments for each individual part of this regular expression. Whereas if I had done something like this, pasting this one in, which is the exact same thing again, how do I comment it, right? I would need like a block comment up here, maybe just like this, and I'd have to type a bunch of stuff in, and it would be disconnected from the actual thing, right? I'd still have to break it all apart and put it into the comment, and then somebody would have to be able to read the regular expression. It's not a fun time, okay? But with this, being able to build it like this, you can add these comments and explain each individual line. And then if you needed a block comment to say, hey, you need that double backslash because of how strings in JavaScript work, you absolutely can, okay? So this was not going to be a fun time for us, which is why I wanted to show this, okay? Getting rid of this comment because it's absolutely useless, but there it is. We built out 2 extra functions. These functions could be tested. They could be used individually. This is pretty universal stuff right here, this first one. This only tests to make sure that we have some kind of a valid HSL string, right? And then we bring both those together for our valid HSL test, okay? And of course, a little bit around destructuring because fun times all over the place. What did you think? Were you surprised by it? Is this the first time you've seen someone do regular expressions like this? Could be quite useful. Simpler ones, I wouldn't, right? The simpler ones tend to be very quick to read once you get comfortable with regular expressions. But for really nasty ones, I like doing this because that way whoever comes behind me gets a feel for what is actually happening. Or in a PR, right? In a pull request or something like that, they can read through this and go, oh yeah, I see it. Or comma with optional spaces, but wait a minute, you didn't actually include the optional spaces. Or you made it so that it is one or more spaces, right? So they can see each individual piece. Okay. Going back to make sure that it stays working. But yeah, hopefully that's it. If you do have questions, if you found a different way that you want to show, please hit me up in those comments. Otherwise, today this has been HSL Validator, and I will see you tomorrow.